Hello, Brookside. Today we are going on our final field trip of the year. Um, because we have Memorial Day coming up next week, which we will be doing something fun for Memorial Day similar to this, we are going to Washington, D.C., as I promised back in the week that we did Japan, because we talked about the cherry blossoms that week, which D.C. has plenty of. So, as I promised, we're heading to Washington, D.C. this week. Okay, let me share my screen here. We have a lot to get through this week because there's just so much to do. Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. And the first section that I have here is a little bit of history about D.C. Some history about how we became a country and how we gained our independence, and about our flag, and basically how we persevered and became a nation after splitting from Great Britain. So that is section 1. And then section 2 is a general tour of DC. There's this really cute video of a kid about the age of several of you guys who takes us on a tour of Washington, D.C. And then one of the really beautiful things about D.C., similar to our trip to Paris, is that D.C. is very beautiful in the evening. They have the monuments and the flags and the important buildings lit up very beautifully at night. So there's a lovely video there about seeing DC at night. Actually, if you go to Washington, DC, you can take a tour in the evening, a nice walking tour. And then there is some information there about some of the top things to do if you do go on a trip to Washington, DC. Next, we're going to look at some of the specific important landmarks in DC. First of all, of course, the President of the United States lives in the White House with his family, and we have a video about what is in the White House. There's a video that tours us through all the beautiful different rooms of the White House, and it's very hard to get into the White House for a tour, but you can. There's a video there that explains how to get tickets to tour the White House. And then, because not everyone can go into the White House, they did start a new visitor center there. That's one of the newer attractions in DC. So there's information there on the visitor center, which I've been there. It's really cool. It shows you history about all of the different families over the years of the presidents who lived in the White House. And then we move on to the gardens of the White House. So one of the really pretty things about the White House is not only inside is it beautiful, it's also beautiful outside. So there's a nice video there of former First Lady Michelle Obama showing us, you know, what they grow in their food garden to eat, and then also their flower gardens. Next, there's just some fun facts about presidents here. One of the coolest ones that I think is included here is the different presidents and the cars that they've driven over the years. There's another video that shows you over the course of time all the presidents and the first ladies. And I think that that's just like a nice, if you like history of presidents, that's a cool video for you to watch. Next, we're going to move on to the National Mall. Actually, again, similar to our Paris video, the National Mall was actually designed after Versailles, France, and they wanted it to be just as beautiful and similar to that. So there's actually a video here about how they designed the National Mall, and then the must-see monuments at the National Mall, and a video on the cherry blossoms. Two of the most prominent monuments at the National Mall on each side of each other, all the way across from each other, is the Washington Monument, which honors President Washington, our first president, and the Lincoln Memorial, which honors President Lincoln, who abolished slavery. So they're both very important presidents in our history. So there's videos there if you'd like to learn specifically, and even if you just want to see what it's like to walk through, there's some walkthrough videos. And then there are so many free museums in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of national museums. I highlighted some of the most popular ones, and then I put links to some of the other ones at the bottom of this document. So the National Archives Museum has the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights there, the original documents that you can see. So there's some history on those about how they were created and why they exist, as well as an actual visit to the museum. And one of the cool things about the museum is they have this sleep overnight tour where kids get to actually stay the night in the museum. So there's a video there on that. And then if we move on, next we have the Museum of American History. And moving on after that is the Museum of African American History and Culture. This is the newest museum to have been built in the United States, opened a few years ago. So I actually have, this is a long section here. There is some videos on actually inside the museum and what the exhibits that they have there. And next we have information on what the design team had to do in order to design and raise the money for and to build the museum. So because it's one of the newer museums, there's actually this really cool video, if you like architecture and construction, of a time lapse of, we could see the museum from when it was not there over time to completely built and ready to open. So that's really cool. And the grand opening of the museum was nationally televised. So the information on this section, there's two videos. One is a kind of like a documentary of how the museum was came to fruition. And then there's another video, which is the entire length of the opening ceremonies, who President Bush and President Obama are the two who really worked together to get this museum open. So them and the First Ladies are highlight there. And then there's many, many speakers, many celebrities, and important people who were part of the funding of the museum. And they do a lot of really nice speeches. So if you're interested, that is there as well. Next is the Museum of Natural History. This is a museum where they have, oh my gosh, all kinds of stuff from mummies to life-size recreations of dinosaurs. And it's just really cool. If you like animals, if you like learning about ancient history, that is a great one for you. If you like the movie Night at the Museum, that is a really cool museum for you to check out on this trip. Next, if you love space and flying and airplanes and anything about aeronautics, the National Air and Space Museum is highlighted in this field trip. And then finally, I couldn't highlight every single free museum, national museum that we have, so I put a link to all of the different museums that you could visit in DC here. There's a botanical garden, the Gallery of Art, the Museum of American Indian, the Museum of African Art, the Museum of Asian Art, the Holocaust Museum. There's just a lot to explore here. So whatever you find in your interests, there's something for everyone on this field trip. I hope you enjoy it. Enjoy your weekend next weekend with your long Memorial Day weekend. I will be filming something similar to this so that we can celebrate Memorial Day together. Keep reading, working with your teachers on your math, reading, and writing. And parents, thank you so much for doing this with us. We couldn't have done it without you, of course. And we really, really sincerely appreciate all that you're doing to help us keep these kids learning. So thank you again. Have a good night. Goodbye.